Hello, and welcome to Mid-America Buddhist Association, MABA. Good morning, Master, Venerables, friends. My name is Xianhuan Francesca, and I'm a lay teacher here at MABA. Today is our Qingming memorial service on filial piety and gratitude, one of the most important days on the Chinese calendar. Held on the 15th day after the spring equinox, this year, Qingming falls on April 5th, which is Tuesday. These days, most people celebrate on the weekend before Qingming, so that's why MABA's memorial service is on the first Sunday in April. In this illustration, we see a typical home altar with the ancestor's name on a tablet, lighted candles on each side, and offerings of food, tea, some incense burning, probably chanting, and bows of respect. The image in the window depicts the meaning of Qingming, which is Chinese for pure brightness. Traditionally, after paying respects at home, people will travel to cemeteries or temples to clean tombs of their ancestors and make further offerings. This is the columbarium at MABA in Dizang Hall. Dizang Bodhisattva is the sculpture in the middle of the room. The lanterns are lit in memory of our Sangha members' ancestors, and visitors will stop by throughout the day to pay their respects. Qingming is a traditional Chinese holiday where people gather with their families to commemorate their ancestors with offerings and prayers. Some people will wear willow branches and place branches on gates and front doors to ward off wandering evil spirits. It's a day for families to have a picnic outside, fly kites, so it's a festival. The traditional Qingming festival includes foods like peach blossom porridge, crispy cakes, Qingming snails, eggs, and sweet green rice balls. These foods are usually cooked 1 or 2 days before the arrival of the Qingming festival, so people can eat and recreate during the holidays. The sweet green rice balls, called Qingtuan, as you see on the screen here, are made of glutinous rice powder and the juice of mugwort or barley grass, mixed together into a little paste. And then they're filled with sweet red or black bean paste and steamed. So it's a sweet, not a savory. Qingming is also known as Tomb Sweeping Day, a popular activity that allows people to pay respects to their ancestors, and Qingming predates Buddhism. Here are some photos of various traditions observing Qingming. In the upper right, you see a man pulling weeds and maybe adding soil or plants to the tomb. In the lower right, you see a family cleaning and repainting the tablet of their ancestor. And on the left, you see someone bowing in respect. Paper replicas of money called jas are placed on tombs or burned, depending on the local custom. The lower right photo is of a family laying out colored paper in Thailand. The other 2 photos are of tombs in Malaysia and Singapore. So this jas are placed on tombs or burned, and here we show them being burned, and some are in very elaborate arrangements. So it was decided many, many years ago that the burning of real money was probably not a good idea. So hence the spirit money or the ghost money. And this is for the ancestors to have in the afterlife. This is a Chinese cemetery in Thailand where a Buddhist monk is blessing the tomb. The photos are of the same tomb. And he has a talapat fan covering his face as he gives a prayer. And this is a mix between Chinese tradition and Theravada Buddhism. In the photo on the left, notice what looks like a shirt and tie. It's made of paper and will be burned. Qingming means clear and bright, or sober and calm, and is related to the onset of spring and the beginning of work in the fields. Trees are starting to bloom, and the ground becomes workable. Beginning in the Zhao dynasty, emperors and the wealthy honored their ancestors with extravagant ceremonies, asking for prosperity and peace in return. Qingming, Qie, means pure brightness Qie, and is named for Qie Chitui, a devoted follower of an exiled prince named Chang'er. And I would go to stop my screen sharing to tell you these stories, but I'm uncertain if I will pull this back correctly. So let me read you this story, or I'll tell you this story on how Qingming Qie came to be. And I came across several versions of this story, which begin in fact and end in legend. In the 7th century BCE, Prince Chang'er's father, Duke Xian of Jin, was embroiled in a civil war and led campaigns against his own sons, forcing them to flee. Prince Chang'er fled with some of his supporters, including Qie Chitui, an artist, poet, and composer of Chinese zither music. So he was an artist. In 655 BCE, during his exile, the prince was about to starve to death. So Qie cut a piece of his thigh and cooked it for the prince, thus saving his life. The prince was so moved by this act of selflessness that he promised to reward Qie. Ultimately, the prince and his followers lived in exile for 19 years, until the death of the prince's half-brother in 636 BCE. Prince Chang'er returned from exile and was installed as Duke of Jin. As he was establishing his reign, the Duke rewarded those who had stood by him during his exile with prominent positions in the government. But he accidentally forgot about Qie, who had moved to Mian Mountain. When he finally remembered the man who had saved his life, a year had already passed. The Duke was ashamed and went in search of Qie. Finding him hiding on Mian Mountain with his mother, Qie refused to see the emperor for some unknown reason. One theory was because the emperor had taken too long to reward him, and Qie had become bitter. Perhaps as an aristocrat, a government job may have been beneath him. We don't know. The emperor was determined to meet with Qie, so he set fire to the mountain with the hope that Qie would overcome his pride and leave his hiding place out of a duty to his mother. Qie was apparently just as determined to avoid meeting with the emperor and stayed with his mother on the mountain. When the fires had subsided 3 days later, they found the charred corpses of Qie and his mother under an old willow tree. The emperor was so upset, he respectfully buried Qie and his mother on the mountain and held a memorial ceremony at the tomb. He decreed Qie's death a day of mourning, which he called Hanshi Festival. No fires could be lit on this day, which became known as the Cold Food Festival. A year later, when the emperor visited the tomb, he saw that the willow had sprouted new branches and leaves. He swept the tomb and declared the day after Hanshi would be called Qingming Qie, which translates as pure and bright Qie. Subsequent emperors in later dynasties were so impressed that Qie was so loyal that his emperor chose to honor him after his passing. They wanted their followers to feel the same way about them, so they encouraged the festivals. In time, the Cold Food Festival and the Qingming Qie were combined into one holiday, the Qingming. Well, excuse me. Throughout time, There have been certain rites and rituals that don't sit well with government officials. When they attempt to outlaw such rituals, however, the bans are typically ignored by the people. As recently as last year, there was an article in Asia News reporting on officials in northern China who attempted to ban the ritual burning of joss paper. They said it was dangerous for public safety and harmful for the environment. The Ministry of Emergency Management reported that 97% of forest fires in the last 10 years were caused by traditional activities. When companies who made joss paper were told to close, grassroots protesters claimed that local governments were working to kill traditional culture. The irony here is that in 2008, China made Qingming a national holiday to preserve traditions among the new generations. Filial piety and gratitude. Filial piety has a long history in society, and there's a Chinese Confucian saying, among hundreds of behaviors, filial piety is the most important one. In Confucianism, filial piety is defined as the attitude of obedience, devotion, and care towards one's parents and elder family members that is the basis of individual moral conduct and social harmony. Filial, meaning dutiful or devoted by one towards another, as a child to a parent. And piety, meaning reverence or respect. In short, filial piety means taking care of your parents. I found a good article on filial piety at Wikipedia, far too long to summarize here. But I will note the main forms of reverence from a child to their parent. Care, respect, making sure parents are comfortable in every way. Victual respect, taking parents' food preferences into account. Gift respect, giving gifts or favors to parents, and celebrations in honor of elders. Presentational respect, being polite, bowing and saluting elders, listening to elders without talking back, and displaying appropriate decorum, including clothing. Linguistic respect, the use of honorific language, sir, ma'am, dear grandfather, dear grandmother. Other things include having elders sit at a place of honor at the table, wherever you are. Building graves and burying elders in respectful ways. Commemorating and making sacrifices for them. Consulting elders in personal and family matters. Allowing elders to have priority in distributing goods and services. Many ways that we can take care of our parents. This is an illustration from the Song Dynasty, showing a son kneeling before his parents. And to me, it's unclear if the two women behind him are bringing offerings on his behalf to the parents, or if they're bringing more food to share with him. I would like to think that he's bringing offerings to his parents. In my research, I found that the concept of filial piety goes back to the 10th century BCE, predating Confucianism. I found that Confucian ethics and Buddhist ethics don't quite agree, and at times there's a subtle pushback from one to the other. For example, in Confucianism, filial piety is obligated, not optional. You must observe filial piety. This caused Chinese Buddhist monastics repeated problems over the centuries. While monastics do give respect and gratitude to their parents, their vows to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha preclude them from worshiping or giving homage to their parents or the emperor. In Baodingshan, China, this sculpture of Shakyamuni, pre-Buddha, overlooks a relief, a wall painting, a long wall painting, that illustrates 12 instances of Buddhist filial piety, taken from various suttas, including the Mangala Sutta, and Jataka tales from the Buddha's past lives. Its intent is both moralistic, to illustrate the benefits of filial piety, and propagandistic, to prove that Chinese Buddhists can be just as filial as Chinese Confucians. Now I have a few stories to tell you on how we can apply, how we address filial piety in today's society. And it's not easy, of course. I was speaking to a neighbor who had a guy along with him. He does construction. And I said, have you thought about being an aging in place, a certified aging in place specialist? And he said, I don't know what that is. And I explained it's how a company can come in and make small changes to your house, like levers on door handles and faucets and ramps that help people stay in their homes for as long as they can. And his eyes lit up and he said, yes. He stopped and he smiled and he said, I saw my grandmother last week. I know. I know. And I think I got him started on how he can help his grandmother. So he sees her very often. So very nice. I have a friend, what I thought was a little weird, but it's okay. He calls his mother on his birthday every year to thank her for giving birth to him. So that's something else. Just calling, being present helps. So, my parents passed more than 10 years ago. And to this day, what struck me most was having to be the grown-up when our parent-child relationship flipped. That was difficult. When they went into skilled nursing and assisted living at the same time, I was required to sign paperwork assuming financial responsibility for my parents' care, which at the time was about $10,000 a month for the both of them. This was about 15 years ago. That, just signing that paper told me I wasn't a child anymore. I was 45. I turned into a mother grizzly bear at that point, and protecting my parents like they were my cubs. I stepped up to the challenge, and my parents both knew that they were in good hands. I have one more story. It's about a Buddhist friend. A lot of us are caught in the sandwich generation. We are in marriages, we're in relationships, we have children, we work full time, and then we suddenly need to take more care of our parents. It's called the sandwich generation. My friend was caught in the sandwich generation. She's married, kids, full-time job, shuttling the kids back and forth to activities in college. And they took in her mother. Her mother needed her. So she brought her into her home. And at the end of her life, the mother's other daughter, my friend's sister, was a Christian. And she decided to convert their mother to Christianity. And my friend was upset because she had done this, she couldn't have stopped it, of course. And it was very kind, we talked about it and we realized that, yeah, my friend couldn't have done any more to take care of her mother in her old age. She gave her a home, food, nice house to live in, everything her mother could need. And as we talked, we've realized that her mother saw the Dharma every day in my friend as she was leading her life. She was fine. But the sister took it upon herself to convert their mother to Christianity. And when we talked about it, we realized that mom wasn't a Christian. She really was a Buddhist. And she was only doing that to make her daughter happy. She didn't believe in Christianity. She was a Buddhist. And that's how she lived her life. And that's how my friend learned to live her life. And I'm sure her children are learning to live that same life. It's a very nice story. So I'm going to close with you today. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings never be separated from the altruistic joy, which is free from suffering. And may all beings dwell in the great equanimity, which is free from attachment, aversion, and ignorance. Thank you.